All right, Poison Blade Vortex Occultist build overview. This character is my take on trying to make a more clear speed focused build this league, specifically with Crimson Temple maps in mind, seeing as it's a very popular and really just solid map to run overall at the moment. And it's worked out really well. It's a lot of fun. Back to Blade Vortex. I'm gonna toss in a map, show you some gameplay, and then we'll go over what makes the build function. One thing you're gonna see basically right away is when I'm popping sentinels on this character, I actually have to kind of slow down a bit at the start of a map to give my sentinel time to actually hit things with its beams. I'm essentially bottlenecked by the sentinel. So we'll get through these, and then now that that's done, we can actually start going. We'll go ahead and skip this harvest for now. We don't need to show that. But yeah, it's a Blade Vortex build. I have 5 stacks of Blade Vortex every cast with Awakened Unleash. And I am an Occultist with Asenath gloves, so I have double explosions. And we have Poison, which means we have Plague Bearer, for basically a whole second Blade Vortex, Righteous Fire type AoE, or even more speed. Once we get going, it's basically just walking around and everything just kind of falls over. Single target is good enough. It's fine for bosses and maps, though the build I wouldn't say is much of an actual proper bossing build at all, mainly due to the fact that my only real sustain on the character is life on kill. So on an extended boss fight, I actually won't have any real way to heal back up other than a flask. Almost done with this map already. It hits that point in clear speed where most of my time mapping is actually just kind of spent looting. More so than even clearing the map. We're down to 15 left. We basically full cleared that one. Yeah, it's really fun, really smooth mapper, especially if you keep it on more narrow indoor maps. That's just kind of the nature of feels like Blade Vortex. Anything that's wider than, I would say, like a strand type layout, you're still gonna have good clear speed, but you're gonna notice, you have to kind of move side to side to chase after the packs instead of just darting in a line. And then at those situations, that's where more ranged builds might have a bit of an advantage. Yeah, let's go over the gear. It's a poison character, so most of our damage stuff is related to damage over time, chaos damage, or just generally boosting our Blade Vortex. So the wand, I've got double damage over time multiplier rolls actually. I was originally only really going for one. I was trying to craft +1 physical with high chaos multi. I happened to hit this one that has okay chaos multi, but also just generic multi. Ended up being slightly better. But that was recombinator craft, basically recombinating +1 fizz with the multis until we hit stuff. Helmets, where I'm getting a good chunk of defense. I've got 2 temple mods on it, temple resists, which give you a tier 1 resistance plus some physical taken as elemental, helps with some fizz mitigation. And then for the implicits, mana reservation and despair curse effect. Kind of just the 2 obvious choices there. On the shields, where I'm getting a good chunk of suppression as well as some res and some damage with physical as chaos benchcraft. For my amulet, I'm using Ashes of the Stars. It's just generally really good. It's not necessary for the build. The only thing would be without it, I think you would need to get a rare amulet with some sort of reservation efficiency or some extra bit of mana reservation efficiency somewhere. But you could probably make a really, really insane rare that might just outright beat this. But, I mean, I had one and it's really solid, so I'm using it. My rings are pretty cool. I went for unveiling minimum charge rolls, as well as getting essence mods. So I would essence with chaos damage. This one happened to hit high strength, and then I did an Ashling unveil and was able to hit endurance charges. And then I think I did reforge life with the suffixes locked to get a life roll. Similar deal on this one, but it's got chaos res and frenzy charges. And then it's Crusader influenced. I tried to hit life gain on hit with spells with a Crusader Exalt. Didn't hit it, but either way, the main thing here, the minimum charges are really good for mapping when you get the Unveiled, since you get charges on kill. I wouldn't say either of them are necessary, but they are really strong. The chaos damage from the essences is really good, though. Alternatively, I could have used, I believe it's Essence of Delirium. Gives damage over time multiplier on rings. I didn't have any. I had a whole bunch of chaos damage ones, though, so that's what I used to roll my rings. The body armor is another suppression item. We've got big suppression and some res and life. And then life as energy shield for getting our ES up to get maximum value out of ghost shrouds. And then for the implicits, I've got generic aura effect and grace aura effect. I think eventually I'm going to try to switch the grace effect for like malevolence or maybe determination, but probably malevolence just for more damage. Boots are mostly just for resists, got some suppression as well. And then the unveiled movement speed onslaught, which is pretty easy to get. You just have to get your suffixes done, and then suffix lock and either veiled chaos or again ashling. And you're basically always going to see some sort of movement speed roll. But I specifically wanted the onslaught on kill one for more clear speed, since I don't have any other way to get onslaught unless I was to use a flask, which I didn't want to do. Alternatively, you could try to get just a life prefix and then just benchcraft the move speed onslaught. And then on the implicits, I've got action speed, because we're trying to go fast, and travel skill cooldown recovery, which helps both the flame dash, but also withering step is a travel skill, and I'm hitting it pretty often. Especially when I hit Plague Bearer, it's nice to just pop the withering step. And so having it up as much as possible is good. Belt is, along with one of the rings, is the other source of I'm getting strength. I needed 2 items with some strength rolls. I think I overshot it a bit. Oh, I overshot it by quite a lot, actually. I didn't need that much strength on this item, but needed some strength. And then, so I just got one with strength and some res and some life, and hit it with a Hunter Exalt, and ended up with chaos damage. It was pretty good odds on the Hunter Exalt to either hit chaos damage or percent life, and I would have been fine with either one. And then the belt enchant enemies withered by you have -6 to all resistances is really strong. If you're unfamiliar with those, you get them belt enchants from Dedication to the Goddess, which is one of the Uber Lab variants. So be careful running those, because the lab traps do like 80% more damage or something. They're very dangerous. And then gloves, I've got Asenath Gentle Touch. These aren't necessary. You can clear just fine without them, but I have found that with them on versus taking them off and testing, there's a noticeable difference. I think a good chunk of the noticeable difference is just due to the fact that it has temp chains on hit. It has a curse on hit, which you could get on like a rare pair of gloves or a ring. But the Asenath's explosion itself also does help, since Profane Bloom is not 100% chance. And there's also, I believe, still an issue kind of with Profane Bloom on its own. Even if you have curse on hit, can kind of struggle on properly chaining through a lot of mobs. Like you would explode a mob, and then explosion would hit mobs next to it, which should curse on hit them, and then give them a chance to explode as well. But Profane Bloom does so much damage that it just outright one-shots things. And I believe that this is still the case, that if you outright one-shot in a single hit an enemy, it dies before the curse on hit is applied. So the Asenath Gloves explosion, on the other hand, is much weaker, which is bad for explosion damage, but it's good in the sense that it shouldn't be outright one-shotting enemies. It'll hit them pretty hard, and I have a lot of generic poison chance, so it poisons and the poison might kill. But if it doesn't outright one-shot in a single hit, it can apply the curse. So I think that comboed with having the curse on hit, it's noticeable. I like it. I think it's really cool. But again, it's not mandatory. But I think it does help. Next up, we'll go through the gems real quick. In my wand, I've got my Plague Bearer. I'm using Anomalous Plague Bearer. It gives some movement speed when it's active instead of some AoE. They're both good. I wanted to try out the movement speed and see how it felt, and I think I like it. I have enough AoE in Crimson Temple to where the AoE kind of covers the whole width of the hallways anyway. So I think the little bit of extra speed is really nice. And then basically the only things really generally to link Plague Bearer to is Empower and increased AoE. You could get an enhanced, but I don't have socket space. Nor do I think I have an enhanced gem. I haven't found one this league actually. In the helmet, I've got my auras because I have a +1 socketed AoE craft here, so I'm getting a little bit of extra levels on my Grace and Determination. So I've got Determination, Grace, Defiance Banner, and then a Divergent Herald of Agony, which gives extra poison chance for quality. And then with Ashes, it gives an absolutely crazy amount. It's giving 70% global poison chance, which is much more than I need. I have 50% on my tree that I'm not really changing out just due to it being the kind of optimal pathing anyway. So I'm like way over my actual needs on poison for my Blade Vortex. But it does help with getting a higher poison chance on my Profane Bloom and Asenath Explosion, so it's pretty nice. In my shield, I've got my Malevolence, Life Tap, Divine Blessing. Just pop it for damage. Boots have my movement skills for the most part. Flame Dash, Shield Charge, link to faster attacks, and then also the Withering Step. In the gloves, I've got a Castle Damage Taken Molten Shell, Ball Molten Shell, as well as my Blasphemy Despair. And then for the Blade Vortex itself, I have Awakened Unleash, which, again, at max level, you get 4 seals, which means I get 5 stacks per cast. So in 2 casts, I'm at max stacks. If you don't have Awakened Unleash, you can get this Caster Mastery that gives +1 to max number of seals, so it accomplishes the same thing. You could get this with Awakened Unleash, and then you're getting 6 stacks a cast, but I don't see much point to it. I think 5 is just enough. There's no reason to invest in getting more, because either way, you're getting to max in 2 casts. And we have a lot of duration, so it's very easy to just maintain those and just tap it every 3 or 4 seconds while mapping. Next to that, I've got Unbound Ailments. Obviously, Awakened Unbound Ailments would be better here. I don't have one yet. Awakened Void Manipulation, Awakened Added Chaos, and Cruelty. And Awakened Added Chaos, I think, is only particularly good once you get it to level 5 because it gives +1 to the Blade Vortex. Although I'm not sure exactly what the next best option would be, because I don't think you would want to run something like Deadly Ailments, since that would mess with Cruelty. Efficacy is an option, but it's not great because I don't think you really need the duration from it. But either way, if you are getting these gems and you have some, like, say, Facetter's Lenses, or you're doing Betrayal and you get some Torah Research XP gem bench things, I think the Added Chaos is the one you want to pump XP with first. You can get that +1 at level 5 on it. And that's all my gem stuff. Really quickly, the flasks. I'm just using full gain charges when hit prefixes, and then I have increased evasion rating, increased armor, reduced shock effect, and reduced curse effect. The reduced shock effect is really nice since I'm running that, as well as I have a few jewels with reduced shock effect on their implicits. If I could find where they are. There's one right there, and I think the one in my belt. So I have about 90% reduced shock effect when the flask is up, which allowed me to switch from Soul of Garukon to Aberath, since degens have proven to be kind of the one slight problem. It's been fine, and I've survived, level 98 in hardcore so far. But Burning Ground in particular, when I'm doing a lot of Searing Exarch maps, it's really nice to just be immune to it, so I can click the altars that add Burning Ground and not have to worry about anything, because otherwise that stuff does a lot of damage. Um, yeah, and then the last flask was that reduced curse effect, just generally good to have. And then finally, we've got the passive tree to cover real fast. Occultist build, Profane Bloom, Malediction, Chaos stuff. Very straightforward. And then I'm kind of immediately just going straight out towards the shadow side of things. I've opted to skip going up to the left, even though a node like Corruption is really good. And damage-wise, this is probably the best anoint you could possibly do. I'm using Sovereignty, which helps a little bit on reservation and gives aura effect. If I had a really, really high rolled Ashes for more reservation efficiency, I could drop Sovereignty and it would be fine. You just lose the aura effect, which means losing some evasion, some armor, and a little bit of damage. But if you wanted to squeeze out as much damage as possible, getting a better rolled Ashes and anointing like Corruption would most certainly be the way. But point being, we're not going that direction at all. We're going straight off to the right towards Shadow. Get some life nodes. Get some good AoE here with Arcane Expanse. This is where I've set up my cluster jewels, which I'm using a physical damage large cluster instead of a chaos damage one, mainly because Battle Hardened and Master the Fundamentals are both really good. You get a big chunk of evasion rating and you get some all res. There's also, you can get a third notable, which this one does not have, that gives 10% physical gain as chaos. I don't have it. I think that third one is always going to be in the back here, so since I have one that's not as good, I'm just skipping it and saving a couple points. But then I've got one medium for area damage, which the area damage doesn't really do anything, but the notables are really nice. Towering Threat, some life and AoE, and Assert Dominance for another big chunk of AoE. More AoE equals more good because we're trying to clear fast. And then my other jewel is actually a Megalomaniac that I found early this league. It's pretty close to just a regular medium cluster, I believe, on just any sort of multi, like Chaos multi or whatever their Chaos damage over time, I believe now medium clusters. You can get both Brush with Death and Circling Oblivion on just a medium jewel. And then you would have a jewel socket for your last point. Mine has Overwhelming Malice, which realistically, I don't think I have quite enough crit to be making super worthwhile. It's up maybe about a quarter of the time. Unholy Might's really good. 30% physical as chaos. I would have to invest in some more crit somehow. I was like joking about trying to get a weapon similar to this, but with spell crit suffix. If I got a little crit somewhere, it would be really nice. But if you're looking to play this, just getting a regular rare medium with these two nodes and like a socket's gonna serve you just as good, and honestly probably slightly better overall. That's that. We're grabbing some aura stuff up here. Poison with Serpentine Spellslinger. Damage from Atrophy. More life, Ghost Shrouds, more poison, more life. Going into Shadow a bit. Fangs of the Viper is really good since you get tons of value out of both the physical and chaos damage. I grabbed Trickery, which I originally wasn't planning to, specifically because it also has some crit chance, which ties back into my Overwhelming Malice, trying to get some Unholy Might procs. Got some more damage, more aura stuff, and then over towards Scion to grab Mage Bane for some suppression, our duration nodes, a little bit of extra life, and noteworthy masteries would maybe be like, I grabbed 10% move speed if you haven't taken damage recently, which I don't know how often this is even active, because I originally thought it was if you haven't been hit. And then I realized it's if you haven't taken damage. So any sort of damage over time effects are also turning off the movement speed. But I don't really need a point anywhere else at the moment, so more move speed, more good. This one's just grace efficiency, just regular aura stuff. Yes, damage multiplier per chaos res since we're easily chaos capped. Yeah, that's the tree. I showed it earlier. Pantheons again are Brine King. We need the freeze immunity and the reduced chill effect, as well as the stun mitigation is really nice, and Abrath for burning ground stuff mostly. I believe that about covers the whole setup. That's how it's working. It's been really fun to play. It's been a while since I've played, I think, a Blade Vortex build at all, and especially a Blade Vortex Occultist. It's been a nice return, and poison is just as good as ever, especially once you get some decent gear to let the Blade Vortex really shine. It's been a lot of fun. That's all for this video. Hope it was interesting. Hope it was helpful. Thanks for watching. See ya.